On Wednesday, a new record was set with 482 migrants making the journey, and the Home Office did not confirm how many landed yesterday, but it was at least 269 according to certain sources, which told the Times that the figure could have been at least 300.
Well, the number of migrants who've crossed in the first 7 months of 2021 now surpasses the total number that crossed in the whole of 2020, when 8,400 made the journey. The government recently pledged an extra £54 million to France, on top, of course, of the £28 million that it pledged last October to try to combat illegal crossings. And yesterday, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, met members of the Greek government to discuss challenges on illegal immigration.
Yes, so what can be done to stop the numbers rising and long-term problems we have if action isn't taken? Let's talk to former NATO Commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Thank you for joining us this morning, Chris. Another record set on Wednesday. I think we had you on a few weeks ago, maybe, when we were talking about a record set back then for the numbers crossing. I mean, how do we get on top of this issue?
I think that there are a number of measures we could take. Unfortunately, some of them aren't politically or legally possible. I think Nigel Farage has been on your network saying, look, we need to adopt Australian rules. We need to tow people back to where they came from. We need to make it an offence, which means that people can never settle here if they're caught coming across the sea. I don't think that's acceptable here. The real problem we've got is there are a lot of pull factors for the UK. I've spoken to a number of migrants who've said, well, you know, they don't look after us in Italy, they don't look after us in France, so we've come to Britain. And certainly, if you look at the way the Danes handle these things, they make it very, very difficult for people to stay in the country when they get there. And so the Danes have had quite a lot of success in relation to reducing what I call the pull factors. But the simple fact of life is we need to get a better surveillance system in place in the Channel, so the French and ourselves have a better handle on being able to intercept and stop these people before they actually get in the water.
And that £54 million is, which is on top of the 28 that was pledged last October. What is that supposed to be doing? Because clearly this has to be a bilateral thing, doesn't it? Because we rely on the French to stop the boats crossing into the waters. That's the fundamental piece of the puzzle. And if they're not doing that, then we can't get on top of the issue. So what's that money meant to be going towards?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're trying to stop these networks operating on the French side. We're trying to detect them when they come off the beach. But there has to be an enforcement arm as well. And the French are signally failing to intercept these. I've heard people say politically and publicly, oh, well, we can't just go and sort of arrest people. Well, yes, you can, actually, because they're involved in illegal activity. It's as simple as that. And if the French can't control their own territorial seas, then we need to be asking very serious questions about why it is they can't. My own view is that the Channel should be a shared enterprise, and we can't just allow France to offload people into the Channel where they're in danger, where they're obviously a problem for us on the border. And we should say to the French, this is a joint enterprise, and if you're not doing your end of the business properly, we can help you. We can get surveillance devices in the form of persistent drones. We can look at the French coast all the way along, and we can alert you to when there is activity about to happen. The problem is that, the French aren't being told every time they're failing to stop these people getting in the water.
There's a funny sort of duality to this whole issue, isn't there, when we're in a sort of summer period in the UK where people are debating whether or not they can go on holiday. We're analysing all the travel advice from the Transport Secretary, and yet it seems as though our own borders are not secure. In a time of a pandemic, when there are concerns about new variants coming into the country, there is an added urgency to this issue, isn't there? How much are we on top of that? I mean, are we sort of doing genetic sequencing or sequencing of people's potential variants as they arrive into the UK?
Well, we don't have a safe, secure border in the Channel. It's as simple as that. And I don't blame the government for this, because they're tied up with all sorts of legal and safety at sea arguments. The fact of life is we are under obligation to save anybody who is at risk at sea. It's irrelevant whether those people put themselves at risk deliberately or not. Look, I used to be on a search and rescue squadron, and obviously you have to go and rescue anybody who's in distress, whether they've done it deliberately, if you like, or they found themselves at risk by accident. That's a fact of life. We have to do that. What we've got to do, and the French have got to help us, is stop people getting on the water. And you do that at the water's edge, and you provide sophisticated sensors and platforms to detect what is happening. So today you've got good electro-optic devices, radar, you can intercept telephone calls and things like that. We just need a much more sophisticated way of detecting what is going on, anticipating what is happening, and actually creating not just incentives, but pressure on the French to actually do the job properly.
And do you, finally, do you worry about what might happen socially if we don't get on top of the issue? Because one of the concerns I have is it could lead to, rise in far-right sentiments, for example, when people feel that they're not in control of who is coming into this country and they have a sense that the government isn't doing enough. And that's one of the things I worry about. Is that something you would share?
Well, I don't think it's just far right. I think reasonable peoples might think actually the pressure on resources, on our infrastructure and everything else is getting quite intense. I mean, you talk to the people in Kent, they are actually paying the price of this because they're nearest to the channel. And I think until we get an overall strategic policy for what is essentially an age of migrations, it's not just the channel, it's all across Europe. And the question I've been asking for some 20 years now is when is the European Union, for example, going to have an external borders policy that works? When that works, we'll have less coming across the channel to us, and we'll actually have a coherent ability to determine who should come to Europe and to the United Kingdom and who should be excluded. It's as simple as that. If you go to Greece right now, the Greeks, for example, have very good surveillance systems in place, and you've seen a reduction in the people trying to come across the Aegean. Frontex, which is the European Union's external border service, has got a drone operating at the moment. It's up for 2 days at a time, and it does all the sort of detecting that we should be doing in the channel right now. It's as simple as that. The technology is there. We just need the will, and we need the political cooperation of the French to make it happen.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.